Microphone was muted.
My apologies for the technical difficulties. I know we're about 10 minutes late. We're waiting on one more person to show. We are live now on Facebook, so I'm asking you please don't talk about anything that's on the agenda. And so if we can hold on for a second while the last participant is on their way. Ronnie, can you do me a favor? Hang on.
Yes.
Hang on just a second.
Dave, I'm sending you a text as well.
Hello.
Okay, there's a flag and
Okay.
control knob thing.
Yes,
Right,
right here.
right.
Yes.
Power that on.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
That should work.
Okay, shoot. Now listen, on my screen, am I supposed to stop the video, start the video, or do you?
Well, on the image on that tough book in there, I need somebody to turn the video on.
On the what? Oh, that thing, the other. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I hope you know, 'cause
Let me drink. Don't unmute the mic. I need the mic mute. But
The screen.
Oh.
Oh, down there at the bottom, it says start video, there you go.
and just,
Okay. Okay, can you see me? Still have no video. I mean audio, no audio.
So I need somehow one of you to move to the other room to get a quorum.
What now?
Dave, who are you talking to? Which building?
Anybody, either the mayor can go over to, and you really don't have to do anything other than just walk over.
You mean to the welcome center?
Is Shelley not on her way?
No, she's not.
Oh, okay.
If so, you just leave your laptop, you can go and sit in Shelley's seat.
Why can't I bring my car?
Hey, Ronnie, can you turn on the Welcome Center or the Tough Book that's kind of standing off by itself that I had him dial into? Can you turn the video on that?
Yes, he's doing that.
Thank you. And there's a little webcam that just needs to be plopped up on the top of the laptop there.
it says start video. I mean, it's already started.
No, I'm talking about the other room, BJ.
Oh, don't close it. Yeah, that one's maximize. Yeah.
Which one are we looking at?
Utilities Commissioner?
No, that's me.
That's you? Okay. So I don't have to unmute or anything?
You may just look at the bottom left.
And it doesn't have
No,
start.
that was it. Now, if you could just plop, Ronnie, just plop that webcam up on top of that, and there you go.
There's that echo.
I'm gonna turn my volume down.
Okay.
We can hear through that. Since we have these, do we have to keep
Well,
our
that's
mask
what I was
on?
wondering. Dave, since we have the
Plexiglass?
stills, do we
Yeah.
have to wear a mask?
Yeah, we're asking everybody to, that's coming into public, so
They
I
don't
think
have
it's
a
important.
shield. Okay.
Okay, we now have a quorum at the Welcome Center.
Okay, are we ready to call the meeting to order?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. This time, I'd like to call the City Commission meeting for December 1st to order. Would you please do a roll call?
Gay. Gay.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Bowman. Did I miss
Okay.
somebody? Travis.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Discussion and possible action to approve the minutes for the special session on November the 4th, approve the November 20 claims, and approve the December 20 estimated payroll. Are there any items that you'd like to take off the agenda?
I make that motion.
Okay, the motion is to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second for Reese. Please call for a vote. You're muted, Billy. Can't hear you.
I apologize. In order to keep the feedback down, I'm muting everybody when you're done talking. So make sure that if you're going to talk, that you go and unmute yourself.
Okay, I
Mute me and Ronnie, and we'll use
made the
Mary
motion.
Jane's microphone. That may help.
Who made the motion?
Ronnie made the motion and Travis seconded.
Okay, got it.
Okay, call for a vote. Oh, we already did? No, go ahead.
No. Gay.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next on the agenda is presentation of the fiscal year 2020 audit from Jana Walker. Jana, you're
Okay.
up.
Can you hear me, everyone? Good. All right. So, I can't share it. Dave, I don't know if you can share it or if you want to share it or if you got it emailed the audit report to all of the individuals on the screen, or you might have a copy in front of you. We made some changes and we wanted to go ahead and get this presented. We did finish it up. So I'll make sure you have a copy. If we can pull that up before I start, might make it easier to see.
Dave, are you going to be able to pull that up?
Perfect. Okay. And I am assuming you can still hear me. So, but perfect. So we are looking at, and let's make sure that my opinions, is that the draft copy or that's on the shared screen? I saw draft underneath it.
You're muted, Dave.
Well, darn it. There you go.
Okay,
I
I was like,
I have the email where you told me it was coming, but I do not have the.
oh, okay. I just forwarded it again. That has the final with my opinions in it.
Okay.
Should be coming through. Sorry about that. I thought
No
you were
worries.
attached on that email from Meredith on that. But while he's pulling it up, I'll kind of go and just go ahead and start on some of the upfront things. And that might be the copy there. But
That's
we
it.
audited the fiscal year June 30, 2020. We got that wrapped up. And so on the very first page, or page 3 of the report, is the independent auditor's report. So this is kind of bottom line. Here's our opinion. What we're going to look at today is the governmental activities, business type activities, all your major funds, aggregate fund information for the city of Mangum. Now, it looks just like last year or very similar. There is a component in there, the Mangum City Hospital Authority, since they don't have audited financial statements that we can bring into. That's what that disclaimer for that one item is. So that's why you kind of have a lengthy audit opinion here. But yes, right there, that disclaimer, that's all that is because we can't bring that in. And so we have to say, hey, this includes everything. And so what we're going to look at, everything else is unmodified, meaning we have no material misstatements in the numbers that we're going to look at on the report tonight. But we did not include the Mangum City Hospital Authority, which would normally be a presented component unit. But since we don't have that, that just splits that out and brings that to your attention. But everything else that we're looking at, we're saying we have an unmodified opinion on. And so that means that we have no material misstatements that we discovered during the audit process. And the numbers that we're looking at tonight, you can have assurance that they are fairly presented in all material aspects. At the very bottom paragraph, there's some required supplementary information. We just say, hey, we are including that in the report. And on the next page, the last page, page 3, of the audit report, there's another report that we're going to look at. That last paragraph, it just states that within government auditing standards, we're going to talk about some internal controls, and we'll round back to that at the end of the report. But the unmodified opinion, that's what you want. You can have several different opinions. Unmodified, that means we have no qualifications, qualified, adverse, and disclaimer. Those are all the ones that you want to stay away from. But we're able to say, other than just the hospital, everything was unmodified. So that's exactly what you want. If we start with the management discussion and analysis, page 4, this is where I'll spend quite a bit of time, because this is the snapshot. This is kind of just the summary of where you're at as a city. And so to bring a comprehensive report, that we have this at the very beginning that just kind of gives you, hey, here's the highlights. The financial summary right there with the bullet points. Here's your snapshot. Bottom line, as a city, What is our bottom line net position? Positive, negative, otherwise? It did increase from the prior year. Your net position, so meaning all of those assets that you take into consideration, netted against those liabilities, is a positive net position. So for June 30, at that particular date, the assets of the city exceeded its liability by approximately 7.4 million. Okay. Of this, approximately 3.2 million was unrestricted. And we just like to look at that and make sure you still have enough flexibility to take care of those things. So that unrestricted net position, you don't want all your assets tied up. But if you go to that next bullet point, your net position, it breaks that down into your invested in capital assets, which for a city your size, we do expect that to be a relatively large number. Your infrastructure, those things, net of your related debt, approximately 3.6 million. The restricted portion of that is just a little under 500,000. And then that leaves that balance of that unrestricted net position, 3.2 million. That's what is unencumbered or unassigned, committed, restricted. That represents the available portion to maintain the city's ongoing obligations. Okay, right there. So that's bottom line, kind of the snapshot. Hey, at June 30, here's where we're at. The total liabilities of the city were approximately 1.6. That reflects an 8% decrease over the prior year of approximately 1.8, paying down the outstanding debt. That's what declines that position as well. And then the net pension liability also plays into a factor for that decreasing. Overall, just looking at the governmental funds, you reported a fund balance of approximately 2.2 million for the year. That's a little bit more than what you presented in the prior year. So that's really bottom line where you were at as a city of these dates. The next couple paragraphs, I won't go into much detail, but that just gives you the definition, what the government-wide financial statements that I'm going to be pointing out to you, what those include for you, the fund financial statements on the next page, and what type of funds. That just gives you an idea of, hey, here's what we're going to be looking at in these financial statements. Here's kind of the nature of those funds and what we're looking at going forward in this report. I will say, I'll point out to you, we had, and the major change from last year to this year, besides just the numbers in that, was bringing on the internal service fund, that fleet management fund that Dave had, we had gone through and kind of how we wanted to present that, and we brought that on, and I'll point out to you where that shows up on your report this year. And so that's really the major change when we get into the actual financial statements that you're going to see that looks a little different from the prior year. If we look at page 6, this is the condensed version of the statement of net position. So here's the summary of those numbers, kind of the highlights that we looked at right there in the middle of the page. This is just a condensed snapshot that you can see a little bit more detail where your total assets, what part of that was current compared to the prior year. And that's, if you can look at the governmental and the business type activities, the total assets actually increased by 5%. Which is always a positive change whenever you're looking. And the total liabilities, that's the difference between your current and non-current, is broken down a little bit better here, where you can see that decrease from the prior year. And then that composition of your net position that we just talked about, you can see those changes. But bottom line, about 589,000 between both your governmental and your business type activities, which was a positive increase from 9%. And keep in mind, just kind of noting this here, with such the strange year that we have had, to have a positive increase, you do have 6 months roughly, the first of the year, that we have been in this COVID state kind of new world that we've brought in. And so anytime you can sustain that for, half the year that we've had that economic impact, and you've still sustained that and had a positive increase, is great news for the city. And going forward and forecasting that 2021 budget, we obviously, management take that into the consideration going forward as well. It's going to probably be a little bit difficult because there's so many unknowns right now, right? It's really hard, but going into the unknown with a positive bottom line, just set yourself up to be able to sustain those going forward in the next year, that we do have so many unknowns. So just be aware of that going forward. If we go to the next page, page 7, there is the snapshot right there. This is your summary of changes in that position. So this financial statement really just tells you how did you get from point A to point B from last year to this year, okay, and how those changes took into consideration. Your total revenues, your governmental activities, 2020, 2019, you can see that there was that increase a little bit, and then, but overall that change between the business type activities, when you take that, roughly about $225,000, 4% decrease over the prior year. Okay, there was some changes in the biggest change was the electricity utility revenues, and a lot of customers had opted to do that differently this year, and so that was kind of the major change was the electric utility revenues. Everything else relatively consistent that we're looking at, but that was the largest change in those. If you look at, we'll go to the next page, page 8. This just gives you a nice representation of what the composition looks like. Everything looks consistent with cities here. You expect in the governmental revenues, your largest portion, right, to be the taxes at 76%. So that gives you an idea of how those are, that composite of your total revenue compared to last year. No major changes on that. And then if we go to page 9, your expenses, that also gives you a nice representation and very consistent with all the cities. Nothing that was alarming that we want to bring to your attention there. But yes, that was 45% your public safety. That's pretty common to have that the biggest chunk of your governmental expenses. On business type activities, looking at that bottom chart, the main concern that we always want to look at, because they're supposed to be self-sustaining, is that they cover revenues, cover the expenses. And we didn't have any concerns there. Your electric, your water, sewer, sanitation, those were all covered, or the revenues outweighed your expenses in those areas. So they were all self-sufficient. And we just always want to be aware kind of as you go forward that our utilities and those services are covering their own costs whenever you look at rate changes and things like that for the future, that you'll be able to sustain that and cover the cost of the services you provide. On page 10, we have the budgetary highlights. Everything was in compliance, so I don't have anything major to bring to your attention. Just know going forward, 2021 might be a little bit more difficult to forecast given all of the unknowns in the current economic environment. But Dave, I'm sure you like a good challenge, so that'll be fun to stay on top of this next year as well as you go through. So just keep in mind as those things evolve, you know, make sure we get all the budget amendments and things like that. That's going to have to happen to stay in compliance before the end of the year, and those dates. I just always kind of like to make sure that we remind to check in on that. But I know Dave's on top of that already. And as you go through that process, your capital assets and your long-term debt, those kind of go hand in hand. Those are your two charts in the middle, because your capital assets or the long-term debt is financing those capital assets. Overall, you can see the difference between governmental and your business type activities. Total between the two, approximately $4.2 million, and that is net of your related accumulated depreciation. So every year that could be a big chunk whenever we bring into depreciation and those depreciating assets. Your long-term debt for Fiscal year 2020 was approximately 645,000 for your governmental activities and 610 for your business type activities. That other accrued liabilities line, that's pretty much your meter deposits right there, the 181 or a large portion of that for your long-term debt. Page 11, that just rounds out. We've already really talked about the economic environment with COVID going forward 2021, a lot of unknowns that we have. Page 12, this is now all the detail of what we just talked about. We kind of went through the summary there. These are your government-wide financial statements. And so the government-wide financial statements, that just brings everything together between your governmental activities, your business type activities, and gives you an idea of every kind of line item. We've already talked about the summary here and the snapshots. There's nothing in particular I want to bring to your attention on these, but just here's your government-wide financial statements, the next couple of pages, and that's your full GAAP accrual, everything that existed as of this date we brought into those financial statements. When you get into the fund financial statements, we first kick off with the governmental funds, and that is page 15. That starts off with your general fund, hospital sales tax, and then all your major funds. These don't have the long-term focus, so we just present the same information really in another way here on your fund financial statements. They all reconcile back to that government-wide picture that we talked about, but now you can just see the detail between those individual funds. Your general fund, where you're at, approximately $550,000 worth of cash, and then $943,000 worth of your capital investments. The investments that you have there for a fund balance of $1.5 million. That's the biggest portion, as expected, with the general fund in your financial statements. That all reconciles back to the government wide. We just don't have those long-term items in those fund financial statements. If we skip over to page 18, these are your proprietary funds. So I had mentioned earlier, we brought on the fleet management fund. That, if you go to the far right column, that's your internal service fund. And that's where that's reported. That's the difference between this year and last year when you're looking at the presentation basis. You have all your total enterprise funds, then that internal service fund. And I'll show you also where the definition of that is in the footnotes. But that column is the major change from this year to last year, just looking at your presentation. And I wanted to point that out to you and how that ties back. If we go ahead, the next couple are still your round out your proprietary fund financial statements. We've already talked about those in the summary and the management discussion and analysis. But on page 22, this is where your footnotes start. All of these look very similar to the last year, except at the very bottom of page 22, we added the definition and disclosure for that internal service fund that we have this year. What that is, it counts for that financing of the goods and services, transfers of the departments that they use for the vehicles and equipment. And so I know you guys have already talked about that for your fleet services, but that disclosure was brought on this year. Everything else very consistent with last year. As far as your significant accounting policies, we didn't have any large changes that we brought into from the prior year. So I'm not going to point out anything specific necessarily there, but if you want some more detail, this is where that is, or explanations for questions that you might have on the face of the financial statement. This goes along with it, and this is where that information is provided to you. If you go down or skip to your financial statements, page 28, here's more detail on what your capital assets look like, your additions for the years, any deletions for the years, and what your between the business type and government activities, along with your depreciation expense. how we recognize that. If you go to page 29, this is the detail of those notes payables that you have. So you can see where it originated, what the terms of that are, and those all tie back to the financial statements to get to your balances. But there's where you can get just a little bit more information, if you so wish, to look at those in the footnotes. The charts tell you, show you at the very bottom there how much came off from this year to the last year, what you paid down, and then what you're going to be required to do in the future on page 30. That gives you an idea of the next 5 years, if you don't issue any more debt, what's coming down the line that you're going to have to service. Okay. If we go to page 31, this is your pension and post-employment plans, all your retirement plans, the disclosures that were now required. That's nothing new. We've been doing that for several years. So nothing new that you haven't seen in the past, just updated for this year financial information that we had. If we go to page, let's see here. Page 38, this is your budget to actual. So you can see where you started, your final budgets, and then your actual revenue and expenses that you had for the general fund that you're required to report. The major thing here that we always look at, just make sure, hey, how many amendments did we have, so that going into the future, do we know, hey, does management, are they planning well and being able to tackle those things as they come in the future? So no major concerns here. We were in compliance. The required supplementary information that goes, the schedules to follow, that's goes along with your pension liabilities. And then the schedules round out with your non-major fund governmental financial statements on page 42. We just had one column because there's so many, but these all reconcile back to what we talked about in your government-wide financial statements that comes into play, but we just have those split out. All the non-major funds, you can see the detail there with your governmental activities, along with your statement of changes for the non-major. After, let's see, page 44, this is the other report that I told you at the very start that we were going to talk about. These are your internal controls over financial reporting. And so the major thing here is, do we have a system in place that it's twofold, that can first either prevent something from happening that would cause a misstatement in the financial statements, or can it detect it in a timely manner? And so we didn't have any findings. We did our test and everything, not saying that something couldn't exist, or there's always that risk that you have a policy in place, but management decides, I'm not going to follow it, I'm going to override it. We didn't have any of those findings, though, this year to report. So that is a positive. That's what you want in a city. You don't want any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. But I always like to remind you, just because we didn't have a finding this year doesn't mean we can relax. We always got to stay forefront, top of mind, so that we ensure that you are safeguarding the city's assets for the benefit of the community. So it's always something that just a regular kind of ongoing discussion that I like to remind you to have is, are the controls in place? Are they operating, and are we following them? And is the tone at the top? And I've had discussions with Dave over the course of the audit, that it is forefront in mind, and I'm comfortable with that we are staying on top of the internal controls and thinking about them regularly. And so the major thing there is, that's your safeguards in place to make sure that we don't have misappropriation of assets, and we stay on top of that. So that rounds out our report for this year. I will stop there and address any discussion that we need to have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mary Jane, the only thing I have, or just a question, will we get a copy of that, Dave?
Absolutely. Now that I have it, I'll email it out to all of you. We will also publish it on our website, and I will send a copy to the Star as well.
Anyone else? Jana, we thank you very, very much. Is there anything
Abs- Absolutely. We appreciate it, and your staff worked very well. I know this year was challenging for everyone involved, but when we came to conduct field work, I just want to commend your staff, Dave, Billy, and all of them, that they did everything that they could, and Meacham's as well, your consultants, to get us the information we needed to go ahead and get this wrapped up for this meeting, and they worked very diligently to do that. So we appreciate your staff working hard, even through just kind of the craziness getting from point A to point B.
It's
Okay.
definitely a crazy world.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Any comments, Dave?
I don't. I just, again, we appreciate Jana Walker and everything that she does for us, and as well as Meredith Meacham, and they really keep us in line, and I appreciate all their work. And I know that they have put in a lot of hours over the last week and a half to get this report to us in time. So we really do appreciate all that work that they've put in. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Jana. We'll go on to the next item on our agenda then, which is the financial report from our city manager.
All right, unmute myself and go and find my presentation. There we are. Sorry, let me get back into this, and there we go. So this month's sales tax went up again and into the 50s. So we're looking at 54,000 for the month of October. That's just absolutely, it blows my mind. Up 19% over last month, 12% over last year. It's just amazing. So we continue to see a steady flow of sales tax come in, and our use tax is staying pretty consistent and steady as well, right in that sub 10,000 area. So we're looking really good. Our government expenditures were kind of that's not correct. The 95% over last month or over last year. I don't know why that did that. I'll have to correct it, but we're still in a good fund balance for the general fund, and that's fantastic. Our MUA, as we always do, starting in October, when the temperatures start cooling off, people aren't using their AC, and we're going to start losing that revenue. And we see it every year. It's nothing to be concerned with, because we have our ups and our downs, and we're going to start seeing those downs because of people turning AC off. That's basically what that is. So the total fund balance from July to October is down there on the bottom. MUA is still 157,000 on top, and the general fund is 79,000 and change on top. So we're still in the green. Here is your sales tax chart. Love to show this because, you know, it gives you that visual of where we've been over the last year. Certainly didn't go near our 58,000 from 2 months ago, but hey, that 54,000 looks really good when you compare it to 48 of last year. So, and here's our use tax. Again, when you kind of look at this, it's pretty consistent. We'll have these weird oddballs in here, but that's expected to happen. So everything looks good there. Do we have any questions on the financials?
Okay, if there's not any questions, Dave, the next item on the agenda is the financial report for all funds from October 20th. Did you just do that too?
Yes.
That's what I thought. So that took care of that.
Yeah, that is in your packets. It's just the standard financial report that we give you. We just put it into a new place.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments on the financial report? If not, we're going to go on to item number 7, ordinances and resolutions. Discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2021-20, budget adjustment for MUA funds, increasing the wastewater department by $2,500 to cover the cost of a DEQ fine received on November the 19th of 2020. Okay. Need a motion? Do we have? Somebody say?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Travis makes the motion. You have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Webb. Now, any discussion?
So I don't want to get into the discussion of why we're having to pay this because I'm going to talk about that in our next segment. But this is just it was an unexpected fine that we received, and we will talk about why we received that fine, but we have to do a budget adjustment to pay the fine.
Can I ask just one question, and not
Sure.
in regards to why the fine, but after we pay this fine, are we expected to have additional fines?
Only if we do not comply with their requirements. And I'll talk about those requirements when we get into that section. If we don't comply, then we're going to be facing significant fines, daily fines. So, but we have a plan.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's not any more discussion, could you call for a vote, please, Billy?
Unmute yourself, Billy.
Gay,
Yes.
Webb, Reese, did those two vote?
Okay. Did you say Webb? Did you say
I
Webb?
called Webb and Reese.
I didn't understand. You say it one more time.
Webb,
Okay.
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Motion carries. Other items, number 8, discussion and possible action to approve a bid for the purchase of 6 sets of bunker gear for the fire department. The current bunker gear is set to expire of 2021 in October. And the city originally budgeted $12,000 to purchase 4 new sets every year. And the fire department has raised an additional $4,900 to purchase a total of 6 sets to cover the full-time firefighters. 6 additional sets will be budgeted for 2022 and 3 more for 2023 to cover the volunteers. Current bids are from Delta Fire and Safety of Texas, $16,642. From Chief Fire and Safety, $18,408. Both bid sheets are included in the commission packet for review. Do I have a motion? Webb makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Reese makes a second. Any discussion on this? Any comments?
Any difference in the two bids? I mean, the reason for the $2,000 difference?
So I can talk to, there's, the only difference is with, it's a different manufacturer of the pants and the coat. The helmets and the rest of the gear are all the same. So the bids are the same for the boots, and it's all the same spec. It's just different manufacturers. So
Does the fire department have a preference?
Delta.
Then I'd make the motion to approve the Delta quote.
kind of did that.
Yeah, well, we didn't say which one. I know, it's confusing.
Made a
I
motion
agree.
to accept the bid.
Yeah,
Deciding that,
which bid?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, but, so,
I'll amend my motion.
motion amended to, approve the Delta bid,
Yes, I'll amend my motion to approve the Delta bid.
and we have, and Reese seconded that. So if there's no more discussion, would you call for a vote, Billy?
Gay,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Reese,
Okay, motion carries. Go on to item number 9, discussion and possible action to enter into a memorandum of understanding as a partnering agency with the Oklahoma State Department of Human Services, with possible action to be taken at a later meeting.
Make that,
Okay.
make that
Um,
motion.
It doesn't even tell us anything. The memorandum. of
There, I don't believe we need a motion to discuss it because we're not going to take any action on it.
I just wanted to bring it to the commission's, bring it up to the commission because it's something that I'll be approaching the commission on. As most of you know, in Southwest Oklahoma, we're losing 4 of our 5 Department of Human Services in Kiowa County, which is already closed down, Harmon County, which is closed down. Our next one slated to close is Tillman County, and then after that, we will close the Greer County office. What we're looking for are partnerships for multiple different things. One, there's 3 levels of partnerships. One's a 24 access partnership, which I'll talk a little bit about that. The next is a daytime partnership, and one is a very exclusive partnership for very specific things. We are negotiating with the Oklahoma Department of Health. That negotiation is going on at the state office level. However, what we're looking for is an example of a place that we can park our state vehicles, possibly. A place where our workers can go and pick up the keys and be able to go out in our state vehicles. We can't take those state vehicles home. And of course, if we close the office, there's nowhere for us to park them. They have to either be parked at a state or a local government or a federal government facility, including like police departments, health departments, things like that. Are concerned with the health department out here parking our vehicles. If care flight lands, we don't have access to the vehicles during that time period. And we sometimes have to respond like first responders and be able to get out somewhere very quickly. Other things that we're looking at are places to go with our children once we remove our children. So we may need somewhere to stay because, again, we can't take them back to the home. Also, things that we're looking at is places that local citizens can go to drop things off so that we can pick them up because our workers are going to be working outside. We want our presence to remain. We don't want to go away. And one of my biggest fears is that once the Department of Human Services goes away, people don't think that they have the access to the services. But we want to show them that the services are still there. I'm talking to Willow, Granite, some of the smaller communities to try to build relationships there as well, so that if there are individuals that need help in Granite, they don't have to travel all the way to Mangum to have that happen. So I will present the commission next month. I'll ask to be back on the agenda with a memorandum of understanding. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight of what we're looking for. I fully expect that at least Greer County will remain open the month of December, but I fully expect that we're looking at closure sometime either in January or February. I don't know the exact date yet, but I'm telling you, once it closes, it goes quickly. We've already removed like our networks there. All my staff is working from their home when possible. And so we need that presence in the community. And the only way that we're going to be able to get that is to partner with local governments or health departments, things like that. So that's why I'm bringing it to you guys today. So at least you have the understanding that when I approach you next month with that memorandum of understanding, that's what we're looking for. Absolutely. We would love to involve the school. Travis, one of the things that I thought about is actually at least maybe once a week having a child welfare worker office out of the school. And those are some other things that we're looking for, is if in the event that we have places to office out of, not every day, but if there's, like, for example, the city could provide us an office space one day a week or something, that we would have somebody there. That's a possibility as well. Even if we're here at the Welcome Center, you know, this would be a great place that we could hold meetings if we needed to, things like that. So that could be in the memorandum of understanding.
If I may make a suggestion, I think that's something that Ronnie, you and I can come up with the details of what we can and can't provide, and get an MUA written, and then just bring it to the commissioners on the next meeting. And I think with you and I working together on that, we can come up with some really good ideas and a good plan.
Absolutely. And the thing, what I will say, Dave, and I think I've told you this, but I'll tell the other commissioners, I can't vote on it because of my relationship with the department. But Dave, I can get you our general memorandum, and we can go through that, and then we can sit down and have some conversations about what that can look like.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, we're going to go on to item number 10. Discussion and possible action to approve a recommendation from the library board to appoint Terry Crabb to fill the unexpired term from Brenda Scott and Gail Snipes to replace Blake Bratton, whose term expires December 31st, 2020. The term for Terry Crabb's term would be through December of 22, and Gail's would be through December of 25. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Gay made the motion. Do I have a second? Reese seconded. Okay, call for a vote, please. Oh, any discussion? Okay. Okay, call for a vote, please.
Gay,
Yes.
Webb,
Did you say Reese?
Webb,
Yes.
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Number 11, discussion on the hospital roof and determining primary responsibility for the cost associated with replacing it. Okay, Dave.
Well, Corey is strategically out of this meeting tonight. I joke he couldn't make it, but we've got an issue at the hospital, and we don't know how to assign responsibility for fixing it. So we've talked about this before. The hospital roof needs to be replaced. That is not something that we budget for. It's not something that we save for. It's not something that we get paid for. We don't get rent from the hospital. So therefore we don't have a contingency fund to take care of the hospital should something go wrong. The hospital being in the situation that they're in, they obviously coming up with funds to replace a roof at something around $80,000 is kind of difficult for them. So Corey and I have talked about this, and we don't have a lease agreement with the hospital. We don't have a memorandum of understanding for the repairs that need to be made there. We don't have any agreement between the Board of Commissioners and the hospital authority, nor do we have that agreement with the Board of Commissioners and Cohesive, who's the management company of the hospital. So we don't know what to do. And that's the bottom line. Who is responsible for fixing this? Who's responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of this? There's, and if we have to think about this in legal terms. The hospital already has a maintenance team, so they take on some of the maintenance of the building on their own. They pay for I think 4 maintainers in that building. But we don't have a contract. So without a contract and without an agreement, there's nothing set in stone who's responsible to fix this roof. So we were hoping that we would have a joint session between the hospital and the commission. That has fallen through over the past 2 months. We've tried to do that, and we can't get it to happen. We can't make it work. We have multiple things that we need to discuss about the hospital. This is just one of them, but this is emergency because that hospital roof is leaking into into their emergency room, and it's also leaking into their COVID containment room. So I'm bringing this to you because I don't have an answer. And I hate to be that way. I hate to say that, and I hate to have to admit it, but I don't have an answer to this. So I'm hoping that we can have a discussion about this, and we can come to some agreement as to what at least the commissioners believe should be the responsibility.
Can we split it down the middle?
I heard you, Ronnie, but I didn't hear Travis.
I was mute. I was trying to just talk off of Mary Jane's microphone.
Well, she muted herself.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you checked on this, but is there any damage that maybe insurance could help?
Yes, we did contact the insurance company. They sent out a a claims adjuster engineer, and who is actually an engineer by trade, and he gave us this nice long 30-page report about how there's just not any damage to the roof. It's just, wear and tear. Whereas I'm sure they actually paid that engineer more than they would have to replace the roof, but that's, speculation and my guess.
Here's our issue. We've got to, it needs it. I mean, every day that goes by costs more money because there's more damage. My only fear is we put all this in it, and then in a month's time or whatever the case may be, that may not be something that was worth our while. And I'm trying to be cryptic, but I don't know what else to say.
Bottom line is it's got to be fixed, right, Dave? Dave? You're muted.
There we go. It does. And the deal with the roof is that it's kind of a specialized roof. It's got these 4 drains that are in the middle of the roof instead of draining off to the sides. That's why it's so expensive, because you have to, those drains that they have to actually be engineered into the walls that go down and out of the building. The cost estimates that we've received on that, and you have in your packets, we've talked to MFR, and MFR has requested that the maintenance personnel at the hospital take care of the routing of the drain once it comes into the building. They will take care of the roof and sealing it to the roof and getting it there. They just want the folks, the maintenance folks there at the hospital to take care of the internal portion. So what you see in your bids are three actually different bids. The one from Luckenbill is to take care of the drains after the roof. So that's their cost to go in and fix everything inside the building. That's not that Luckenbill quote does not do the roof because they don't do roofs. So we would have to hire another company to come out and do the roof just to replace that. It's kind of a convoluted way to go about it. I've tried to get a good solid, hey, here's what it's going to cost from anybody, but because of the complexity of that roof and the way they keep telling us, well, there's 2-3 ways you could do this, and they're all going to cost different amounts of money.
Dave, if we paid for it, how would we even pay for it? We haven't, this isn't even budgeted.
It would literally have to come out of fund balance from last year. And we need that. I can't, I don't know of any other way to say that, but you know, we've struggled with, we received some funds from the federal government or from the state, excuse me, but by way of the state, I guess, in our reimbursement costs, but that was to go towards the city hall deal. I don't have that. We don't have $80,000 just sitting around.
Well, here's my issue too. We're asked to vote on something. I don't think we have enough information about what's going on at the hospital to be able to have a clear and good discussion. I feel like we have to have an emergency meeting with the hospital board to be able to understand what's going on with the hospital, to be able to make a decision on this $83,000 or even the $120,000. I just don't feel like I don't have enough information to say anything.
I agree, and we're not asking for we're going to pay for it. Here's what it's going to cost, and I put the bid sheets in there because of the cost estimates, not because I'm wanting to put those bids in front of you. What I'm looking for is what is the general direction of the commission as it comes to the responsibility of who needs to pay for that roof, and we can look at this in one of two ways, and we can say utilitarianism, whoever owns it, and we are the owner of the building, therefore we are responsible for its upkeep. The leasing and land agent portion of that says that if they are already maintaining the building for themselves, then they should pay for the maintenance of the building to include things that go wrong with the building. You know, they pay for when the locks, the liquid oxygen went out, they had to pay for that. When they replaced all of the flooring, they paid for that. When they replaced all of the, you know, they did all of the construction work on the front lobby, they paid for all of that. The city didn't pay for any of that. So when you look at it from that ownership aspect, you know, the building's ours, we should pay for it. When you look at it from the land and lease usage aspect of it, they're already paying for everything anyway. This is their responsibility. And that's why I literally cannot make a decision on this because we don't have an agreement.
Did Corey mention anything about like a month to month? Are we on a month to month because of they're using the property month to month?
No, we don't have a month to month. We don't have a year to year. We don't have anything. We have nothing with them. But because the hospital is a city entity, and we've got a commission or a hospital authority that's in charge of their portion of that. They're not leasing it. They're not paying us rent. They're not paying us. we get nothing from the hospital. We don't get rent from the hospital. We don't get any kind of dividends off of their revenues. We don't get, there's nothing comes from the hospital to the city.
Dave, what do they say?
They want us to pay for it, of course. That's the bottom line. Is the hospital wants us to pay for it. They can't. They're in the same boat I am, and Marie, the CEO of the hospital, and I talk about this, and we've talked about it for months now. That they don't have the money to pay for it either. So it's. I think the best way to approach this would be to approach them and say, hey, look, we need to split the cost of this, and you guys pay for your portion, and we'll pay for our portion, and we'll call it a day. And that's strictly because of the situation that both entities are in. If the city was in a great position, then we would be able to say, hey, I've got a capital improvement project that was going to happen and don't need it to happen. We can use that funds. I don't have that. We don't have that anywhere. We're just now starting to build up those capital improvement funds, and I'm putting money away into those funds so that later on we're in good shape when something does happen. Otherwise, there's always, we could go and take a loan out for it. I'm just strategically against putting the city in debt. Debt is the root of all evil to me, and I've worked very diligently to get us out of debt. I think you heard some of that in the audit. The more that we can put in and have cash on hand, the better position we're in. So I'm not saying that debt is the root of all evil. I'm just saying it's, when we don't have to do it, we shouldn't do it.
Should we plan on a meeting with the hospital, or is this something that we want to appoint somebody to get some details, or what?
If you tell me to, I'll negotiate with her more and try and get them either way, whatever you tell me. If they need to pay for the whole thing, we'll negotiate that out somehow. If we want to try and figure out a way that we can go halves on this, we can go and pull out of our fund balance to do that. We've already used some of our fund balance already with, well, actually we didn't go into fund balance on that, but we've got fund balance there if we have to. I just would rather not do that, because that fund balance would be a great way to pay for our meters.
Dave, my only concern is what I went back to in the beginning, is we don't have, this commission doesn't have enough information about what's going on in the day-to-day, and whether or not that's going to be there in 2, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case. And do we want to put that kind of money in something that we don't have that information?
Well, and even if, the worst case scenario, and we're tiptoeing around and we can't talk about, happens, then we would still have a building that's ours.
Well, would it be I would just recommend that we would do more discussion and with the hospital, with Marie and them, Godwin, I don't know who, because we're just like them. We don't have the money for all of it. All right. We can work on what we could come up with, but don't you think we need to have some type of discussion with them and to see?
Yeah.
I think that's the only option.
That's the only option we have.
Continue the negotiation and see where it gets.
I would recommend that. I mean, that we let Dave talk to them.
I
get some
think we
more-
could have some flexibility. I don't know how much, but I think there's some flexibility that we could have. So Dave, my suggestion is go to them and see how much, when it came straight down to it, what can they do? If they really had to hit a hard number, what is it they could do?
What?
Travis, you're not coming through at all.
Well, I was wanting to be quiet. I was just kind of asking.
Unfortunately, in a public meeting, you can't be quiet.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know if we had any other properties that were really not utilizing that, you know, we would put this as a higher priority than.
I will say this, and let me, I failed to bring out this one. We're also staring down the bullet of the barrel of replacing the annex roof and City Hall roof, because both of those buildings have substantial leaks.
You're talking about our cost and it's not insurance?
Yep. We haven't even started that. Right now, we've mitigated the leaks and we're not doing any damage, but we have to get it fixed. In fact, Billy and I talked about reaching out to have them give us a couple of bid estimates. One, just to fix the leak. Two, to replace the entire roof, and to get an assessment of where that roof is structurally on both buildings, and how much is that going to cost us to do both things. You know, if it's just to fix that one portion versus what's it going to cost us to replace the whole thing. So we've got bids going out soon. Billy, have we put all those together yet? You're muted.
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Okay.
Do you want just the one place?
We're going to need to get multiple. So, yeah. I mean, we know who's going to be the cheapest, and I would be surprised if anybody came in cheaper than what they did. And they've done good work for us.
Stuck with getting anybody to vote to
Yeah,
give it to.
That's true.
Well, it sounds like kind of what Ronnie said. The next step with the hospital is just to negotiate with them. Because if they say, you know, absolutely zero liability on their part or possibility, then that changes our stance. And if they are willing to take some responsibility of it, then it increases the probability that maybe we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Dave, they're still using the New Hope free, right? They're not paying anything for New Hope. They're using at least half that building.
Yeah, they're using the front quarter of that building right now. And that was something we talked about back in May, that they needed the space because of the COVID ward. And we were supposed to.
They're doing physical therapy over there too, in those other rooms.
Yeah, so that's and when we go into that agreement, that's going to be an actual lease agreement for that property. We're not going to mess around with that. That building belongs to the city. It doesn't belong to the hospital. It doesn't belong to the authority. It belongs to the city. Therefore, the city needs to enter into a lease agreement with Cohesive to use that building.
Okay, Dave, did we make everything kind of clear about what you can do on that?
I believe so. I'm gonna reach back out to them and try and negotiate it down again. And
Okay.
we just, all parties need to understand that all parties are broke. So I think if we both put in a little bit, I think that would be the best way to tackle this. So.
But they're still getting their just whatever they, well, they're still making some income. They're still trying
Yes,
to
they are.
pay off a lot of debt too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, anything that they make goes right back into paying that debt. So,
Okay, anything else?
not on that.
Okay, if not, the next item is to motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Reese. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Webb. Please call for a vote.
Gay,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. And Billy, when you're ready for the MUA, let me know.
Okay. Ready.
Okay, you ready, Billy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please do the roll call?
Reese,
Here.
Webb,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Gay,
Here.
Bowman.
Okay, we do have a quorum. And the first thing on the agenda is the consent agenda to approve the minutes of November the 4th special meeting, approve the claims for November 2020, and approve the estimated payroll for December 2020. Is there any item you want to remove from the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Webb seconded. Okay, call for a vote, please.
Reese,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. There's only one other item down here, number 4, report from the general manager on the DEQ consent order received on November the 19th of 2020. Okay, Dave.
Okay, so there's no action in this. We have already taken the action that we've needed to take, giving you a heads up on what that is going to be and how it's going to pan out. On prior to how do I say this? Prior to my getting here back in December of 2017, the DEQ approved an engineering report for sanitary sewer improvements that were prepared by Glenn Sullivan and Associates. They are our engineers for our wastewater. One page in that report claimed that there was a 20-year design flow in our lagoons of 59,000 gallons per day, where our actual average flow is about 300,000 gallons a day. They came out, they identified this portion of that report and said, hey, you guys are operating this out of specs, and you're way over on your infiltration and way over on your amount of allowable water into the lagoons. We fought that because we have the original design plans, and the original specs stated that the facility was designed for 400,000 gallons a day, not 259,000 gallons a day. When we contacted Glenn Sullivan helped us they gave us the original documents, all the original plans, and all the approved permitting for that, those lagoons, and we won that argument. At the same time, they also came out and took a look at a lift station on the north side of town. Called the Dakota Street Station. That lift station services the hospital. It was originally designed just to service the hospital, but it was also added into that some of the neighborhood that is just south of that. Not all of that neighborhood goes into this lift station, but some of it. That lift station does not get used very often. In fact, it gets, from what my recollection of the discussion that we had with our wastewater folks is, that lift station that gets used about twice a year. We've had one issue with that lift station in the past. It was years ago where a pump failed and it overflowed. We fixed it. We had to clean that up. This was years and years ago. But what we didn't know, and what we didn't, was that lift station does not have an alarm. There's no overflow alarm. There's no, when the pump stops, there's no alarm to tell us that the pump is broke. All the other lift stations, well, we only have one other lift station, but the other lift stations have it, and it worked just fine. This one, yeah, there was a light bulb there, but that doesn't work anymore. So they wrote us up for not having an alarm on this. They wrote us up for not having written emergency, an emergency manual procedures for how to operate that lift station in an emergency. And we have no written procedures for the scheduled maintenance of that. This is all institutional knowledge that our people have and have passed over years after years after years. It was never written down. So there are 4 findings that we are responsible for, and I will show you directly in the consent order here. Let me put it up. On the screen, you'll see page 7 of our consent order. Task letter A is that the respondent agrees to take steps necessary to eliminate and prevent bypasses from the total retention lagoon system. This is an immediate deal, and what this is the lagoons. The water that comes out of the lagoons goes across the street and across a field, and is fed to a pivot that is on a cotton crop. I mean, that's all they ever grow there. We have a mandatory agreement with them, and they had to sign a deal when they bought that property that the city has to dump water there, and we've got a permit to do so, and they have to take it in a responsible manner, and they have to take it whenever we tell them that they have to take it. We have we've not really stuck it to the owners to say, hey, here's what responsible manner means. And they've allowed that pivot to run in a way that the water pools up on the south side of the land and then goes into the stormwater ditches across the street and then across the south side of another field, another pasture, runs across that field and then it runs down into the river. And that's about 1,300 meters, I think 1,300 yards away. And it happens every 2 or 3 times a year where they run that pivot and they soak and they soak and they soak, and we don't catch it in time, and all that water just starts running off. I put in a call to the DEQ when I first got here back in 2018 saying, hey, this is a problem and I don't know what to do about it and I need your guys' help. This is their response to give us a consent order. So you can take that for what that is.
So Dave, did they not give us an opportunity to rectify the situation before they fine us?
Yes and no. They give us a notice of violation, and they tell us, hey, this is a violation, you guys have to fix this and what have you. The problem is that we received that notice of violation back in July, and we went and did everything that we could to fix it. They came back out in August and inspected, and sure enough, the landowners were running their pivot at the slowest setting with the highest amount of output, flooded the neighbor's pasture again while the DEQ was there. So this is why we are getting a consent order. So there's some management issues in there, and I take the responsibility for those management issues with this. But it's been made very, very clear that if a bypass does occur, again, that we will seek legal action against the landowner to include any and all necessary action and claims against them to cease and desist. They cannot take the water in a manner that destroys the habitat. That's just the bottom line. So we have an agreement now with the DEQ that if a bypass occurs again, we're going to go after legal action. So that's letter A. Letter B is the emergency operating procedure. That is due along with that's down here. These are the tasks. Along with C, which is our standard operating procedure. And what they're asking for is the standard operating procedure for the land application system. We are working with Glenn Sullivan right now to build those manuals for us. I'm not going to try and create a manual and have our guys create a manual that the DEQ is going to say that's not enough. And now you don't have enough time. So we're going to have the engineers come out and professionally make that for us. So the last piece of this is to set up the alarm at the Dakota Street pump station, and that's due on April 1st. We have no problem meeting all of those due dates. Glenn Sullivan has given me all of their assurances that they can handle this, they can get it done, and we won't have any problems.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I just want to make it clear, when people see and hear that we're under a consent order, everybody freaks out and says, can I drink the water? yes, you can drink the water. This has absolutely nothing to do with our drinking water. Our drinking water is safe. This has absolutely nothing to do with, the safety of our sanitary system. It is, we are on top of it. If something breaks, we're doing our very best to fix it as quickly as possible. If there are rumors out there that we're overflowing in our lagoons, that's not true. In fact, we are at 3 feet of freeboard right now. I was out there the other day to take a look at them just to see where they were at in a drive around, and they're in good shape. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that report, and I know we'll get all that other stuff done. Any other comments, questions? Next thing on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Gay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Reese. Please call for a vote.
Reese,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very